He's Howard Eibach, a former copywriter and creative director and the author of two books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 30 years of experience. Together, Henry and I are the Brief Brothers. We love talking about creative briefs, briefing, and advertising. Henry, we're back with another episode, and we're going to focus our conversation today on advertising, not so much the brief. I wanted to focus on the scandal that broke not long ago regarding the 2025 Cannes Festival of Creativity. They're it's a multiple pronged scandal. 4 or 5 or 6 separate campaigns were flagged for various violations of Cannes rules. But the one I think that got it kicked off centered around a film campaign done by Brazil DM9 on behalf of, I believe CNN was the client. And it won a Grand Prix, top of the top awards that eventually was rescinded, withdrawn. And I think 2 of the executives of Brazil DM9 resigned in disgrace because what happened was there was an unannounced use of AI to create false, fake imagery. I don't have all the details. I think what I've just explained to you right now is the top line of the scandal. There were 4 or 5 other agencies in various parts of the world in different categories that were also flagged for additional violations. And I think what has brought this to the attention, obviously in our industry and in industry publications, is the number of violations and the scope of the scandal. But a couple of things stick out in my mind that I wanted to talk about, and you can share your thoughts on this. First and foremost, none of these stories has yet to be picked up by the mainstream media in the same way that the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle campaign, which we talked about last week, blew up in the mainstream media, which to me it's laughable because the Sydney Sweeney campaign brouhaha was about a bad wordplay and how some people manufactured their outrage. So it was superficial, in my opinion. Whereas this scandal gets to something that is existential in our industry. I don't know anyone in our industry, creatives, strategists, account people, clients, who are not talking about the existential impact that AI could have on our industry. Already we're talking about the number of jobs that might be disappearing. The services that we provide that could be made obsolete because of AI. And yet this agency is using the very thing that might cause its demise to falsely win an award that it had to cough up in a very public and disgraceful way. So I see a double standard here. It may happen in some, a number of weeks, days or weeks, that the mainstream media will see what happened at Cannes this year as worthy of bringing to the attention of the world as a mainstream news story. I'm hoping that'll be the case. But it really speaks to a weakness, a flaw in the way we adjudicate issues when a bad ad gets more attention than a fundamental existential fake use of technology. And that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to know if you had any thoughts on it.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First is the mainstream media's reaction to this versus Sydney Sweeney. First, I'll say the mainstream media has beclowned itself for the last 10 or 15 years to the point like where it's laughable. I don't know if you're familiar with the monk debates in Canada, but they're very structured debates, and they did one with Matt Taibbi and the British intellectual whose name I forget right now. On the one side, the proposition was the mainstream media cannot be trusted anymore.
You
And
sent me the link. It was a fascinating
and
debate.
they had Malcolm Gladwell
Mhm.
and somebody else, I think from the New York Times or something, on the other side. And the crowd was, I'm pretty sure, 50-50 going into the debate. And they've been doing these debates a long time, and they pulled the audience at the end. And the side that was in favor of don't trust the mainstream media won by the largest margin ever in one of these debates. So they couldn't even send a good representative to defend the mainstream media at this point. I think the reason that happened, or the reason the Sydney Sweeney thing blew up, is because it was used as a political wedge, plain and simple. It was useful as a political wedge. The story of fraud at the Cannes Lion Festival is an industry insiders inside baseball for an industry that 99% of people never think about, right? Like, even when they're watching commercials, they don't think about how that commercial is made. And that there's an entire industry and infrastructure and class of people that, like me, that live off of this industry. So, not surprising that they don't care. Could it make a juicy story for 60 minutes if 60 minutes were interested in having real interesting stories? Yeah, it could make a hell of a news magazine show article, CBS This Morning, whatever. Could, but right now the incentive is for them to do stories that are about blood and guts and politics and divisiveness. So that's
Well,
not
if you
that
don't,
that's
if you,
not that's not a surprise.
well, if you, yeah, oh, and I don't disagree with any of that. It's not surprising that the mainstream media hasn't picked up on it, which isn't to say that they won't, but to suggest that this story isn't juicy enough, a story that so many people believe is going to wipe out white collar jobs and could decimate our own industry, and yet this is the tool that they use to win an award.
Well,
No one sees. I mean, this is beyond irony.
that's
This is
another
beyond irony.
that's another angle, and I think it's an interesting angle, right? So there's two angles, three angles that you mentioned. One is, why didn't the media pick up on it? Two is this idea that AI was used to defraud the Cannes Lion jury and win a Grand Prix, given the fact that all of this wrenching of hair and gnashing of teeth regarding
And clutching at pearls.
regarding AI, especially in the advertising industry. But then the third thing is about, how does the industry police itself? And what the short answer to that third question is, it doesn't. It's the honor system. And with the honor system, there will be always people who seek to take shortcuts to get the glory, that should not be rightfully afforded to them. I would argue, and I guess maybe I'm becoming a little bit more mellow in my age, that there's karma. And, these people got caught. They've been disgraced. You mentioned people have lost their jobs over this. Agencies, I believe the agency you mentioned is part of the DDB network. DDB, a storied agency and network, an important
Mhm.
part of Omnicom, which is merging with Interpublic and is going to be the biggest advertising conglomerate in the world. This isn't the kind of headlines, I don't think, that the corporate heads at Omnicom and Interpublic want, ahead of the merger and all that. So I think it's a cautionary tale to
Absolutely.
agency leaders, and particularly in quote unquote creative shops that are hungry for these awards. We were talking offline, and of course, when you writing a case study, and writing a case that's going to become a case film, because what's judged at Cannes is essentially a 2-minute film, that you have a temptation to embellish things, to tell a story that isn't exactly the way that it happened. And that's kind of built into the nature of the awards. And you mentioned that there's no independent. Well, the jury is supposed to be the independent, but this is a business. Let's face it. The Cannes Lion Festival itself is a corporation. It's a
Yeah.
festival. It's a corporation that has revenues. It has employees. It has costs, and and the entries are very expensive. If you win an award, you have to buy the trophy. The trophy is very expensive. Like all of that is profit for this entity, and it's not just Cannes Lion. It's the New York festivals. It's the
Well,
AD.
if you've ever judged an award, I know you have, you can't possibly dive in as deeply as you would like to know what goes on behind the scenes. You have to trust, as you said, it's an honor system. And the honor system hasn't been working. 30 years ago, the very beginning of my career, as I've said before on this podcast, I won awards for AirSats advertising. It's like, well, okay, no one was killed. It didn't hurt anybody. It might be within the bounds of ethics, but we can argue very, I think, cogently and compellingly that this just sets up more of what we're seeing today. And
Well,
and
I,
given the fact that there's actually been some discussion already on how we change the judging system to make our awards truly based on what they purport to be. Is it truly effective? Is it effective and creative? Is it just creative? Let's use an independent panel of outside jurists.
maybe AI could do it. Listen,
Maybe.
I so I think there's different awards and they have different standards. So I'm going to tell you the ones that I'm the most familiar with are strategy awards and things like the Effies. It would be hard, really hard, for an agency to get away with this kind of nonsense in an Effie entry. I'm
Oh,
not saying it's
I agree.
I'm not
I
saying it's
agree.
impossible, but generally, because it's a written case, because it's a case that has to be backed with a lot of numbers, um, it 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 usually the people that are putting those numbers forth, and I was telling you offline, like when I write a case, every statistic that I quote in the you can bet your ass that I if you challenge me on it, I could show you how I got arrived
Well,
at it
I
and how.
see,
Now that
Henry, I'm
doesn't.
sure that I'm sure that all 17 of our viewers know that I know that you wouldn't lie about that. So
But
we
but the
trust you.
but the point isn't about me. The point is, yes, there's a culture. I think particularly in these high level creative festivals, um, there's a soft white underbelly of uh, corruption. And I honestly, I think that these scandals are good because it's
Well,
got it's,
there you and
it's
I there you and I agree, but I want to get back to the
I
main
think
point.
it's gonna cleanse the
I hope
system,
so.
and I think that people are going to be a lot more careful about what they submit and being able to justify. Now, I want to go back though real quick because for me, I have a tattoo of a can lion on my ankle because I won one in 2022. And we did an episode here on the Brief Brothers where I told you
Yes.
exactly behind the scenes
Hmm.
how that idea came to life for a client we didn't have, but that I had an in to go get a meeting, and we generated the idea. We had to partner with another agency for it to be executed. It wasn't executed in the United States. It was executed in Brazil. It was executed for one day, but in my mind, it met all of the legal requirements. Now, would I, if I had final edit of the case video, I might have done things a little bit differently, but not because of ethical reasons, because of style reasons and communication reasons. But I, I, so I understand how it could happen, right? Because I've been in the guts. So for me, this scandal is personal, or these scandals are personal because it tarnishes what I think I rightly earned.
And
Um,
I agree with you. And I want you to know that I have a tattoo of your mug on my ankle because I'm so proud of you. Right? That's how proud of you I am. I took that. It hurt like hell, let me tell you.
uh,
The ankle has got way too many
did I
bones.
have long hair or short hair in the
I did no
tattoo?
hair. It's just your mug from our logo.
Okay.
But I want to I want to get back to, I think, my main point, which is about AI, using the very tool that I think will decimate our industry and decimate a lot of jobs in the society, and the poo-pooing Maybe it hasn't broken out into a bigger perception in the world, and I'm hoping that that will happen. But yes, we're getting press coverage in our own industry publications. But compared to compared to the Sweeney ad scandal, I think it's monstrously bigger. And if it weren't so sad, because it's so sad, it isn't ironic. And that's what's, I think, sad about it.
I think one of the ironies is, without knowing the details, in this particular case, without knowing the details, I would say that one of the ironies is that it got discovered. So the AI maybe wasn't that good, right? Like we've seen a lot of things that we look at. Like I'm seeing a lot of stuff now in my Instagram feed and stuff that like the minute somebody sends it or posts it, like people are in the comments saying this is clearly AI.
Well,
Like I
yeah,
got that yesterday. It was I have a friend of mine who sends me stuff. Because he knows that like I post stuff with like boat ramp fails, like where the pickup truck falls back into the boat ramp or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I've seen
And
those.
he sent me one. It was this like 18-wheeler truck carrying like a super yacht on the back on a trailer and hitting an overpass with and the thing was too high for the overpass.
And he didn't see
And
it.
and all of the comments said this has to be AI. And that
See, so
looking
I mean, I mean, all those tsunamis hitting Manhattan, they're not real? Darn, I thought that was real. Darn, okay. Well, in any event, I think I want to give a shout out to our friend because he's been on our show before, Nick Asbury. I mentioned him last week. Nick has done a magnificent job of keeping this story alive on LinkedIn. I'm sure there are others who are talking about the scandal at Cannes. I'm not seeing it, but I'm not the one source to turn to find out what's happening and the latest that's happening. But nevertheless, Nick has kept this story front and center for me, and I thought it would be a worthy subject for our podcast. So, Henry, good stuff.
good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
He's Howard Eibach. Together, we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time. Bye bye.